Okay, another important part is collisions. You want to know if another object on your screen is colliding with another object. In this case, we're gonna start off with something simple, and we're gonna say it's the floor. We want to see if our Earth image is colliding with the floor. Okay, to do that, obviously, we're gonna have to make this fall down. Okay. So to make this fall, we're going to get rid of our up and down key press events to stop the image falling. To start off with out of our main loop, I'm going to add something in called private sub function. In fact, I'll call it function collision check. I'll explain what this is, the function difference is, in a minute. Okay, now by val actor 1. It's not necessarily going to be an actor, it could be anything really. As we'll call it image, but you could use an object if you wanted to save time later on. And we're going to call actor 2 because these are the two things that we want to check for a collision. Obviously there's going to be two objects that we want to check for to see if they're colliding with each other. Okay, now the way we do this is we use a rect. Now this is a fantastic little, in fact we'll call this one rect 1, little technique that makes life so much easier. I used to actually calculate the collisions myself based on coordinates, width and height, but essentially what a rect does is do that for you. So we'll say this is a new rect. Sorry. Okay, and then the same again, but we'll call this rect 2. So we've created two new rectangles essentially, but not to be confused with an actual rectangle, because a rectangle is an actual object you can put onto the screen, but a rect is simply used, as far as I'm aware, for collision checks. Okay, so what we want to say is, first of all, we need to put rect 1 and rect 2 into the same position as our actor. Rect 1 dot, you could say location, but I'm just going to say it's x and y coordinate. X is the distance from the left side of the screen, y is the distance from the top of the screen. Okay, so rect 1's left, distance from the left, is actor 1 dot margin. In other words, it's margin from the left again, dot left. So that means that it has the same left coordinate as my first image that I passed through. Okay, now I'll copy that and do the same thing underneath, except now I'm going to say it's y coordinate to my image's top. And then what I want to do is I want to say rect 1 dot width equals actor 1 dot width. The same with the height. So essentially what I've just done is I've just created a rectangle around my object. I've not put it on the screen, but I've said it's got the same coordinates as my first image that I'll pass through. And now I want to do the same for the second one, so I'll copy and paste that and just replace the ones with 2's. Okay, so now I've got a rectangle in the same place as the first actor that I'll pass through as a parameter, and also a rectangle around the second one. Okay, now all I need to say now is I want to intersect rect 1. In other words, rect 1 dot intersect with rect 2, and what this means is that I'm going to intersect those two rectangles. I'm going to see if they intersect, basically. Okay, so what I need to say here after that, once I've done a quick collision check, I need to actually see what result that returned. So all I'm really going to check for here is, because I don't care too much about coordinates or anything like that or how they interact, I just want to basically say, did it interact? So basically, if I say if is empty equals false, then now that all that means is if it's empty, then it didn't intersect. If it's got something in it, then it did intersect. So return true. Else return false. And that means if you're not empty, in other words you've collided, I'm going to return true, and return basically means this function is going to pass true out of itself, and then otherwise it'd pass false out of itself. That might become clear in a moment. So what I'm going to say is I want to constantly be moving my image down. Okay, so let's take that off the left, and the top minus, in fact no, I'll be plus if I'm moving it down, and I'll just say 2 for now. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving my image 2 pixels down as part of the main loop. We'll see how that looks now, and you'll see it go straight through the floor. Once we've done this first collision check, once we've done this first, once I've shown you this, obviously you'll see I can't move it up and down now with the keys. I can only move it left to right, and it goes straight through the floor at the bottom. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is prevent that from happening. But later on we'll take gravity in another tutorial into account, and I'll show you how to create artificial gravity, I suppose. But it's all just a bit of maths really. If you're quite keen on maths, you might be able to figure it out for yourself, but if not, I'll post another tutorial now to do that. So what we need to say is now that's constantly moving down, so we need to check to see if it's on the floor before it decides whether it moves down or not. So if collision check, then okay, so what that means is if the collision check returns a true value, in other words, it hits that bit, then it's going to run the code between the if and the end if there. Okay, but obviously we need to pass what things we want to check for a collision between. That's why I've done it as a function, because later on you could do it with multiple objects, a lot more things. So I've called the image earth image, and I've called the floor. Okay, so just change its name to whatever you want, but I've called it floor in this case, and it earth image in the other one. So I want to check for earth image and floor. Okay, so now that's going to do a collision check between earth image and floor. So if they collide, that would move the image down. But actually I want to say if they don't collide, I want them to fall down, because obviously if they collided it means they're actually touching. So let's try and run that again. And that should return, if the rectangle's empty after I've tried an intersection, then it should stop it falling. Okay, so it'll go straight to the bottom, and there you go, you see it stops. And now I'll just move it around the bottom, so now it's rested on the bottom of the screen. So I can only move from left to right because I've disabled the other keys. When I go to the edge of the screen, if I move it to the left, you may be able to see this. It'll start falling as soon as it doesn't intersect anymore again, so it's gone off the screen.